we're just getting started. We've had all this goodness in the rear view, and look ahead. Look who's coming down the Galactic Highway. It's Kaylin Castell. She's going to be talking about the timing of 2022. Let me tell you a little bit about Kaylin. She's the founder of Venus Alchemy. She's a ceremonial initiatory experience, which is a ceremonial initiatory experience aligned with the Venus cycle and the very popular Venus Signature Series. Both are available online. Kaylin is also the co-founder of My Star Alchemy, exploring the magical stars, as well as the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. In 1996, Kaylin began writing the Celestial Timings, one of the first ever astrology astronomy monthly e-zines for the Priestess Community newsletter. Kaylin has been featured speaker at many live events and on several radio shows, podcasts, and online summits. She also hosts a YouTube channel. If you are not subscribed, do yourself a favor and subscribe to her channel that has many helpful and inspiring videos. And her website is on our website, but it's kaylincastell.com. And Kaylin is one of the most peace-making, wondrous, magical women who can bring the skies down to our level so that we can sit at the table with her and learn about the mysteries that we are, because the stars are in us and we are in the stars. Kaylin, I turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Judy. I am delighted and thrilled to share with you. And I'm also so delighted that we had the interplay come before my sharing, because that got us more in our bodies. And one of the challenges of what I have to share is that sometimes can feel very mental. And I just want to invite everybody to just take it in and feel what I'm telling you. If you don't understand it all, that's okay. I will be explaining it. And sometimes I had to hear this many, many times before I actually understood it myself. And I know many people have had that same experience. So we got to X-form, and now I'm going to inform you about the sky mysteries. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to look at, because I'm also a very visual person, and I really like having images to look at. So that's really helpful for me. And some people, more visual learners, some people are more spatial learners, some people are more kinesthetic. So at least we can have a couple of the things here, auditory learners too, I guess. Anyway, so I'm excited to share with you about the 2022 Sky Mysteries. And ultimately, everything I'm speaking about comes from the understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. It is meant to be a living relationship. And it's one that in our dominator culture was basically kind of erased from most people. And so now we're getting that back, and that I'm very excited to be able to help with that process. And it's a process. It takes time. It's like, we have to learn the language and the energies, but everybody can go out under the night sky. And if you were up early this morning, you would have seen something very spectacular. And I'll show you about that in a moment. So we're going to look at the planetary initiation cycles that we're experiencing. And really this year, the theme, letting go of the old and embracing new possibilities, of course, that really works for the time that we're in bringing in the new earth. But the first thing I want to share with you is just to kind of set a context, and that is part of what's happening, and I'll talk a lot about this, is the Venus cycle that just started. And this morning we had the first Venus moon conjunction in the morning sky. Mars was also there, very spectacular. And it's really about how are we bringing back an understanding and appreciation and honoring and reverence for the crone, for the grandmothers, for the ancient ones that are with us on this side of the veil and on the other side of the veil. And so those of you who've been in the priestess community that I have as part of my lineage, you will recognize what I'm going to share with you, this charge of the crone. as a rewriting of the charge of the goddess. And I just love it so much. So I'm just going to share. Hear the words of the dark goddess who stands within the crossroads, whose torch illuminates the underworld. I am the queen of magic and the dark of the moon, hidden in the deepest night. I am the mystery of the other world and the fear that coils about your heart in the time of your trials. I am the soul of nature that gives form to the universe. It is I who await you at the end of the spiral dance. Most ancient among gods and mortals, let my worship be within the heart that has truly tasted life. For behold, all acts of magic and art are my pleasure, and my greatest ritual is love itself. Therefore, let there be beauty in your strength, compassion in your wrath, power in your humility, and discipline balanced through mirth and reverence. You who seek to remove my veil and behold my true face, know that all your questioning and efforts are for nothing, and all your lust and desires shall avail you not at all. For unless you know my mystery, look wherever you will outside yourself, and it will elude you, for it is within you and nowhere else. For behold, I have been with you from the very beginning, the comforting hand that nurtured you in the dawn of life, and the loving embrace that awaits you at the end of each life. For I am all that is attained at the end of the dance, and I am the womb of the new beginnings, as yet unimagined and unknown. Love that so much. Such a good reminder to all of us. And also, I just want to say, I know some of the things new to you, and that some of the challenges will be in understanding. You will have access to all these slides. I haven't provided that yet because I was working on it this morning again. So I'll be, but I will make it available so people can go back and look. And also you'll have the recording, you'll have access to the recording so you can go back and listen, because sometimes we need to hear this many times before it really lands. So I always like to start with the largest context of what's going on. And what is happening in the great above is that we are at something even bigger than the so-called age of Aquarius. And I'll explain a little bit more about why that is and why the age of Aquarius is much smaller turning of an age than the whole turning of a great galactic year. So the reason we know this is because of where the December solstice sun is currently rising. And basically the sun is on the Galactic Cross. So this green line that you see here is the path of the planets. The sun travels that path, as do all the planets travel that path. And it's also the plane of our galaxy, our solar system. And then the blue line is you can see the kind of Milky Way stars here, that it's coming through this band of the Milky Way, and where these two cross is called the Galactic Cross. And this is where the December solstice sun is rising, and it came within 1 degree in 1926, and it leaves the 1 degree in 2070. So it's at least 144 years of a great turning of 26,000 year cycle. Now, the center point, when it came within 0.5 degree and leaves 0.5 degree, is from 1962 to 2034. No matter how you look at it, we're at the center of this, and the exact alignment was in 1998. This was calculated by an astronomer named Jean Meuse. And so this is how we know this is the timing that we're in. And ancient cultures who used to watch where the sun would be rising at certain solstices or equinoxes. Now, of course, you couldn't see these constellations at that time. You could see them in the opposite seasons, but they recognized that there was a difference between the seasonal signs and the constellations. And this is something that a lot of astrologers are just now starting to understand. And one of the things I love about having this information is that I've encountered sidereal astrologers who just look at the constellations. And I'll just give you a quick example. My moon, when I was born, was right here above the tail of the scorpion. So they would tell you that I have a Scorpio moon, but by season, I have a Sagittarius moon. So the seasons move through the constellations, and over 26,000 years, every every season will be with every constellation. And when the sun, the December solstice sun at 0 Capricorn is on the Galactic Cross, we know we're at the changing of a great year, not just a month year, which is what the equinox here, March equinox, 0 Aries. Now, interestingly, astronomers agree with astrologers that 0 Capricorn is the December solstice, and it's the season in the northern hemisphere of the shortest day and the longest night, opposite in the southern hemisphere. And the equinoxes are the balance of day and night, and that the 0 Capricorn point is that seasonal point, and the 0 Aries or 0 Libra are the equinox points, and then 0 Cancer is the June solstice point. So what we see here is that the March equinox is pointing to where the celestial equator, and the celestial equator is essentially the equator of the Earth expanded into space, and the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees. So, where these two intersect, the ecliptic, is where we have the seasonal experience of the balance of day and night. And where they're furthest apart, we'll either have a winter solstice or a June solstice. And of course, that depends on the hemisphere we're in. Now, interestingly, the Archer is this, I drew an arrow here because the way they draw the Archer, this is a better, the image below is a better way of drawing it. And we're going to talk a lot about this star, Nunki, that is where Venus and Mars and I guess the moon is passing by here today as well, that particular star. And it is the vein of the arrow, and it points right to the center of the galaxy. They did not know this was the center of the galaxy until the 1950s. And all this time, in our more modern day time, all the time, the arrow is pointing right to the center of the galaxy. So our universe is set up, our galaxy is set up in such an amazing way, at least from Earth's perspective. The other thing we're going to talk a little bit more about is Venus, Moon, Mars, and Pluto, and it's hanging out right about here. They're all in Capricorn, but they're in the constellation we call the Archer, so that people don't get confused, but also called Sagittarius. So that's why it gets confusing. You can also see that the December solstice point here on the Galactic Cross is a long way from the sea goat, also known as Capricorn or Capricornus. And so again, this is that movement of 1 degree every 72 years, and over 26,000 years, every season will be with every constellation. And what we're looking at is, how do we bring our understanding, how do we come back to a sense of wholeness, understanding that the constellations and the seasons are part of our evolutionary process. So as the signs move into new constellations, then there's an evolution that's taking place. And as it aligns with different stars, there's an evolution that's taking place. So, again, biggest context of what it is that we're experiencing now. So if you were up early this morning, you would have been able to see that Venus and Mars and the moon, the crescent moon, were all pretty close together. And for those who can read this, this is the moon at 2 Capricorn, Mars at 3 Capricorn, Venus at 4 Capricorn, Mercury's at 26 Capricorn, very closely conjunct Pluto, and will be stationing direct in a few days. And so we're going to talk a lot about Pluto and what's going on with that. But this Venus moon conjunction marks the first Venus gate of the descent of Venus into the underworld, where she releases her crown chakra. And this particular Venus cycle is very much associated with the grandmother energy, the crone energy, that kind of thing. So again, here's the star Nunki, the moon very close to Nunki, Venus very close, fairly close to the moon today. And then the moon is occulting Nunki today. And this is really about the Archer's arrow aiming at the galactic center. So if we think of galactic center as the galactic cauldron of transformational change, where we're invited to release and let go of all our energetic distortions, and with Venus being there at the crown chakra gate, it's really about releasing the energetic distortions around the crown chakra. And one of the things about the crown chakra is that it has to do with our divine authority. And so many of us haven't had a really strong connection to our divine authority for whatever reasons, whether it's been the culture that has conditioned it out of us or whatever traumas we might have experienced. So our opportunity is being magnified by the fact that the moon and Venus are with a star that is the vein of the arrow, that is the release point into the center of the galaxy. So we are sending all our old energy to the galactic cauldron, or we could call it also the galactic womb, where it can be renewed in the heart of our galaxy, energizing the wisdom of the heart to transform Earth's destiny. Such a powerful time happening today as we speak. Oh my gosh, this is just so mind-blowing. And Venus with Nunki highlights the importance of this powerful alchemy, highlighting the wisdom of releasing and letting go, sending our distortions into the galactic cauldron. And just so you know, the sun will pass this part of the sky on January 2nd or 3rd every year. And this year it was happened to be on January 2nd with a new moon. So it was another powerful activation with Nunki about releasing things into that galactic cauldron. And we are currently experiencing a series of moon occultations over Nunki once each month that will last until I think it's about February of 2023. And that's helping to further activate and accelerate the possibilities for this radical transformation. That it just so happens only every certain amount of years can the moon pass by Nunki and occult it. And occultations are like eclipses, accelerating and magnifying the energy of whatever it is we're holding in intention. So again, with this occultation of Nunki with the moon and Venus with the moon at the crown chakra gate, it's such a powerful timing. So just for those of you who might not know, and I know I haven't really told the whole story yet, but Venus she creates a pentagram in the sky. And so I created this because this has the constellations behind it, but also the seasonal signs connected to it. So on January 14th, Venus rose with the star Nunki and another star we'll talk about in a moment in the sign of Capricorn, but in the constellation of the Archer. And then when in 2023, August of 2023, Venus will rise again. Every 19 months, Venus is rising in a new sign. And it's going to be in the sign of Leo, the seasonal sign of Leo, but in the constellation of the Crab. So if you are turning a multiple of 8 between January 14th of 2022 and August 18th, I believe, of 2023, you are for sure in a Venus return. That happens every 8 years, meaning on your birthday, on your 8th birthday. So, you know, say it's age 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, 96, or 104, then if you're turning in that window somewhere close to your birthday, Venus will be back close to where she was when you were born. And we have found this is a powerful initiation cycle for attuning to, and you know, we as priestesses attuning to our intended expression of the divine feminine. And so there's many different ways that expression can be brought forth, but the sign Venus is in at the time you're born, as well as the overarching cycle, this cycle of Capricorn, gives us a lot of information about what's going on with your Venus. The other things that can make a difference is Venus a morning star, add fire. Is Venus an evening star, add earth. Is Venus with the sun for 60 to 90 days, add water. Is Venus with the sun retrograde, add air, because that's that metamorphic shift from one expression of Venus to another. So we can work with the elements and our understanding of the Venus cycle. And it is just so it has been so life-changing for me and for many people I know that have worked with this ceremonially. And literally, the Sumerians and the Babylonians did Venus ceremonies as a culture. And they did it based on the story of Inanna's descent into the underworld, or Ishtar's descent into the underworld, dying to what no longer serves, so you can be reborn to what really serves. So it's like dying to the old earth so we can be reborn to the new earth, especially when it's in Capricorn, because that's an earth sign. So the other thing is this 5-pointed star and the pentagram has been long associated with the divine feminine, with the goddess, with protection, with magic, the 5 elements. And interestingly, the Egyptians and Celts felt the pentagram represented an underground womb where we are reborn. And with the Venus rising with the star Nunki that is pointed to the galactic center, this is even more true with this particular Venus cycle. So again, this will be something you can have access to. But if you are born within any of these dates, then you are in a Venus return. And what happened was in 1974, Venus shifted to Capricorn because it stays in a sign, and when it comes back, it's within a couple of days of being precise, but it's slowly moving backwards through the signs. And so all the points of the pentagram will slowly move through all the constellations as well as all of the seasonal signs. And I have to say this Capricorn cycle, even though it's not my personal Venus return, has created massive life changes for me. And I love this cycle so much. When we look at the Capricorn mysteries, we see them as being connected to the circle of grandmothers. And Lisa Teal, who lives in Tucson, Arizona, by the way, I've met her, she's amazing. She wrote this song to the grandmothers, and you can get it on YouTube. I highly recommend that you listen to it as an anthem during this Venus cycle. I've had, this time, I had a time in this cycle, actually, some years ago, I went on a ceremonial hike, kind of unplanned, and I just started singing this song. Grandmothers weaving the rainbow, grandmothers weaving the light, grandmothers weaving the rainbow, weaving the threads of my life. And as I was walking, a rainbow appeared. I was like, whoa. This is powerful. So I highly recommend that you take time to be with this. You can listen to it on YouTube as much as you want. And it's just such a great song for this particular time. All of 2022 and into August of 2023 is like an anthem that we might want to do. So when we think about the grandmothers or the crone or the hag or the witch, interestingly, they once were very positive, honoring, respectful words for an old woman. And then they became demonized. But if we look at crone, it comes from crown, meaning wisdom. Here we are at the crown chakra, so I love this. Emanating from the head. Hag comes from hagio, meaning holy. Did you know that? I was like blown away when I realized that hag, which has had such negative connotations, and if you're called a hag, it's like such a terrible thing to call somebody, and it actually means holy. And then witch, I knew this one, comes from wit, meaning wise. And of course, it's become more wicked, and wicked actually originally meant wise until it became associated more with evil and that sort of thing. So here we are with crones, hags, and witches frequently being leaders, midwives, and healers in their communities. And the meanings of these 3 words being distorted by 300 years of the Inquisition, when the male-dominated church wanted to eliminate women holding positions of power. And so what I imagine we're doing now with this particular cycle is reclaiming the gifts of the crone, the hag, the witch, the grandmothers, the elders, the wise ones. So women identified as witches, often older women, crones and hags, were tortured and burned. And the words witch, crone, and hag took on a negative connotation that continues in our language. There's a crone movement, however, reclaiming the positive word meaning of these words. And I am here to say, let's do that here as well. And a lot of this information came from cronecouncil.org. So just if you want to get more or learn more about it, there's a longer article. I just took the parts that I was most interested in. So we all have grandmother guides. And this is something we really learned in the last time Venus was in the Capricorn cycle. And so it's about really, how do we connect with them? How do we open our awareness and start inviting them to give us their wisdom? Now, you may already be doing that, so it would be a time to up-level that, take it to the next level. but we have grandmothers of our bloodline and of our soul lineage. So the beloved grandmother, the elder woman of your bloodline you have known personally, can be from distant past, can be embodiment of DNA from past or future, from past or future bloodlines. Oops, yeah, that's in there a little second time. Anyway, and then the soul lineage might be star beings or celestial guides from other realms, dimensions, galaxies, here to help humanity, here to help us personally transition to the new earth culture. And then the grandmother elder guides of different bloodlines from past or parallel lives can also be part of our soul lineage. Or we could also, and this is the one I highly encourage us all to get in touch with, it's not outside of us, it's inside of us. So all this exists inside of us. So how do we access that grandmother wise crone essence that lives within us? And that's what this cycle is about, releasing all the distortions that are in the way of that, so that we can let go and then die to that false sense of self, so we can be reborn to a new sense of self. Now, Mary Daly, who I love that she wrote a book called Gynecology. She lived from 1928 to 2010, and she had a great way of speaking about Crohn's, who had the power of endurance. And so this book is about a synthesis of theology, mythology, philosophy, history, and medicine. And here's a quote from the book. It is noteworthy that Merriam-Webster gives us the etymology of chrony, the Greek chronos, meaning long lasting, or chronos meaning time. It would seem eminently logical to think that crone is rooted in the word for long lasting, for this is what crones are. So ultimately, it's time for the wisdom of the elders, including the crones, to be valued and deeply honored and respected once again in our new earth. That's, I mean, if we're not including this piece in the new earth, we're missing out on the wisdom that they can bring to us as the steady, ingenious, courageous, compassionate wisdom embodied in our wise ones, elders, grandmothers, and grandfathers. And ultimately, it is the fact that we stopped listening to them that got us into all the trouble we're into now. So anyway, so this Venus journey, it's an initiatory journey. And what we're looking at, and these are the things, so whether, if you want to do this journey on your own, I highly recommend going out and being with Venus and the moon, doing ceremonies, create a Venus altar, have a Venus journal, work with this energy to access your own inner wise one, your own inner crone, your own inner grandmother. And what we're really doing here is understanding the importance of our innate wisdom, creating the space for everyone to be equally valued for their unique contribution, not just a select few. That is kind of more what we have going on today. And then learning more about the value of taking responsible action and also having fun doing so, because the Capricorn mysteries are often seen as being very sort of serious. And ultimately, if we think of the goat that's been associated with Capricorn, it's more playful, and it's not so much about rules as it is about guidelines. So, and we'll see that in a moment, but this is also about knowing self through responsible service and wisely executed actions. Doing less, accomplishing more. When we really understand how to work with these mysteries, we don't have to work hard, and we have more time to play. And literally, there was can't think of the name of the magazine right now, an article that was published some years ago about how they found a culture where they worked 3 to 5 hours a month to supply all their needs and everything. And the rest of the time they were doing creative projects and ceremony and having fun and socializing and doing all that. I want that world. That's the world, the new earth I want to live in. So anyway, and then learning how to experience wisdom and embrace opportunities, even in the darkest, most challenging places. And so that's a part of what this journey is about, and about releasing the pain of domination, manipulation, unnecessary hierarchy, and power over. So we're working with that with this, and also recognizing we can accomplish far more together, creating flexible guidelines rather than seriously following human rules. So just to take a little bit of a side trip here, because I'm going to share some questions that we can work with. And the reason that we want to ask questions, I love what James Redfield says, is he says, you see, the problem in life isn't receiving answers. The problem is in identifying your current questions. Once you get the questions right, the answers always come. Let your perception of beauty and iridescence lead your way. Places and people who have answers for you will appear more luminous and attractive. And so asking the right question. So what if we were asking the right question, if what we're doing and asking questions is the key to changing our life experience and co-creating the new earth? Like, how is it that I'm living in the new earth and it's so much fun and I'm enjoying it so much, or that it's just so joyful and amazing and supportive and it just works in the most magical ways? What if, instead of asking what's wrong with me or why I am not fill in the blank, healthy, happy, prosperous, whatever it might be, you asked yourself, how can I change my point of view to see what is right for me? Or you asked yourself, what steps do I need to take to create a more fulfilling experience? So that's just to kind of give you a background of why the importance of questions. And now here's some questions to consider in this Venus cycle. But first, did you know that in Proverbs, they talk about grandmother? Proverbs 31, passage 25 to 26. And this is what it says: strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in time to come. I'm thinking that time is now. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. So just, you know, the whole idea of the grandmother, the wise one, it's just fascinating to me that it was also even recognized in Proverbs. So are you stepping up to consider how important taking loving, inspired action is for you, the earth, and the generations to follow? Great question. You can work with any of these questions or all of them, or you can pick the one that just calls to you the most. Are you calling on the wisdom of your ancestors, helping to transform their trauma, if there is any, changing the legacy going forward so that it's not old patterns of competition, like killing off our competition, killing off our world, killing off anything that feels threatening, whether figuratively or literally, because we have both going on? And do you have the courage to do what feels most loving, supportive, and kind, even when it goes against the status quo? Are you taking steps to change your perspective, to be aware of the places where you get triggered or hooked into an emotional response that puts you in survival mode? Are you choosing love and kindness as the way to create the new world or the new earth, however you want to language that? So these are just some examples that might inspire other ways for you to create questions that you can ask and journal around, especially during this time when Venus is in this particular cycle of honoring the wise one within, the grandmothers within, the crone within, whatever it might be. So now I am going to shift a little bit for a moment to the February cross quarter that's happening on a magical number day, 02022022. And the cross quarter is often celebrated on February 2nd, Groundhog Day, but it can also, it is basically when the sun reaches 15 degrees Aquarius. That is the exact halfway point between 0 Capricorn and 0 Aries. So when the sun reaches 15 Aquarius, we have a cross quarter, and that's happening this year on February 3rd. On February 2nd, Venus is in a degree of Nunki. We'll talk more about Nunki in a moment. And Mars is about 4 degrees from Venus. And the moon is aligning with the royal star Fomalhaut. And this is, so the 4 royal stars are powerful stars in the sky for us to connect to. I don't have time to go into that, but just so you know that when you tune into that star, it's the watcher of the south, it's connected to communication, it's the mouth of the fish, and also associated with Archangel Gabriel or Gabriel, however you want to look at that. And Jupiter's also close to that place in the sky. So one of the things I have been doing is going back and reading Nicole Christine's book, Temple of the Living Earth. And I've actually been working on it for a while, and I picked it up again yesterday and came across this, also remembering that the first priestess emergence, talking about the new earth and talking about how we are coming together to begin to create that. The first ceremony took place on February 2nd, 1995, where women emerged as priestesses. And so as she was preparing for that ceremony, this is what she wrote. I've often cried because community and celebration were so absent in my life. Now I cried with relief and gratitude for its organic emergence. My role as initiator was not at all altruistic, nor were my actions consciously deliberate. The yearning in my soul was simply so intense that it called loudly to others whose souls yearned for the same. Our motives in co-creating a new reality are very personal and very real. A new way of being was finding expression through us. As we broke free of the casings of the old ways, we established new ground where we and others who cared to join us could begin anew. I'm like, wow, that was 27 years ago. How amazing is that? Now, interestingly, after the emergence ceremony, she wrote this. I, Nicole Christine, this is her intention. So she wrote it and put it and printed it in her book. I, Nicole Christine, joyfully intend to consciously and responsibly utilize my resources to seed the new earth in 1995. I intend to fulfill my commitment to establish the 4 foundational priestess circles as anchoring cornerstones for the ceremonial intent, which, when in place, symbolically establishes the celestial earth matrix, we could also call it the new earth matrix, of the priestess sisterhood. I further intend to fully activate Gaia and Green Man consciousness to celebrate life and birth Earth Song publications through self-publication of the Temple of the Living Earth. This will prepare the way for publication of collective writings of the awakened priestesses. I open to receive the greatest good that I might have more to give and more to receive. It is done in accordance with divine design and divine timing, and I give thanks. Now, interestingly, I emerged as a priestess in the 4th circle. So the 4th pillar or cornerstone was put into place on December 2nd, 1995. So almost 27 years ago. And what I imagine is that this was setting a template into place. This was setting an energetic field into place that I don't think we really fully understood back then, but I feel like looking back now, I'm like, wow, and I got to be a part of that. That just blows my mind. And Nicole did leave this world in October of 2008. And so so she got all this stuff going, and we're the ones carrying it forward, and we're the ones that are helping to bring through that vision, because she said, utilizing my resources to seed the new earth in 1995. And she did that. And we are here to build on what she seeded and seed our own intentions and our own way of being with it, whether you're in this priestess community. And I will tell you, back in 1995, the word priestess, the women in the circles that I was in and the women I knew that were already priestesses didn't like to use the P word, because it was like people would get startled and look back. And now it's everywhere. And there are priestess circles and lineages all over the place, all good. It's like it started this tsunami that we didn't have any idea what was going to happen with that. So I just wanted to honor Nicole and this vision that she had, and that we are here right before the February cross quarter. And we're doing this intention, and we're working with these mysteries over this weekend. And it just feels like it's such a magical, maybe not even planned, but maybe it wasn't even thought of, because I wasn't thinking of it when the weekend was suggested. It wasn't until yesterday I really got it, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So another thing that's happening on February 3rd is Mercury will station direct. So currently Mercury is retrograde right now. It's very close to Pluto. We'll see that. We saw that already. We're going to see more of that. And then it will start about an 85-day process of all the planets moving forward, or all the planets being in direct motion. So when a planet is retrograde, it's not good or bad. We never look at anything as good or bad. It's just a time to slow down and reflect and go deeper, and perhaps ask deeper questions. about what's going on, and to also realize that it might not be the time to push things forward. But when all the planets are moving forward, it's a full speed ahead into co-creation and collaboration. It's progressive action toward a heartfelt intention. And so, so just if you know that, and on that cross quarter, February 2nd or 3rd, you know, this is a great time to begin to formulate those intentions. We've already started formulating intentions here today. And then also be aware, because there's always a shadow side to everything, that this energy moves really fast. And so if we're not paying attention, we might be ignoring signs and messages, and we might make reckless choices with unintended results. So we want to just be careful that we're not doing that. Now, coming back to Venus, she is making 3 conjunctions to Pluto. She's already done 2 of them back in December. The 3rd one will be March 3rd. And this is rare because Pluto can only be in Capricorn for 16 years every 248 years. And so having this triple conjunction is bringing to our awareness the death of the old way of seeing the Capricorn mysteries, and as well as the old way of seeing the feminine as it expresses through the Capricorn mysteries and the crone and the grandmother. So this also, this 3rd and final conjunction that's happening on March 3rd at 27 Capricorn, 50 minutes. So there's 30 degrees in a sign and 60 minutes in a degree. So it's almost 28 Capricorn, only 17 minutes from being precise with the US Pluto. And that the US Pluto return, hopefully we'll have time to go into that a little bit. If not, I've done a video on it and you'll be able to see that. So interestingly, Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and it will leave for a short time in 2023, comes back into Capricorn for a bit of time, and then it goes back into Aquarius in 2024. So we're just getting towards the end of this journey with Pluto and Capricorn, and the whole entire planet is experiencing it. Now, the reason we know this is such a rare occurrence is that in 2013, Venus did pass Pluto on November 15th. And again, in 2014, it stationed direct close, that's that 8-year cycle, 2014 was 8 years ago, close to where Pluto was, but not exactly with it. So it wasn't even quite a double conjunction. And so here's what we're seeing on March 3rd. And I did this for Tucson, but so you see Venus and Pluto at 2750 Capricorn, and Mars is also very close. And so with Pluto being the guide, the initiator, the teacher on how to die to, how to release, how to let go, how to surrender to what needs to go, so something new can come in. It's just this amazing, powerful thing that's happening. And so it's interesting that we get this opportunity to be conscious of it, work with it, because we're informing the mysteries as they're informing us. What are we needing to die to so that we can be reborn to this new earth in a great way? Now, the last time this happened was in 1770 and 1771, and that was about 252 years ago. And it won't happen again until 2264 and 2265, I think, is the next time it happens. So this is rare. It does not happen all that often. Now, again, Venus on January 14th rose as morning star, and that began the cycle that we're in, and it was at around, let me see if I have it was at 12, oh, I don't have the exact degree here on this slide, but Venus was very near Ninki, the star of the vein of the arrow that we talked about earlier, and Vega, one of the Bohemian stars of the ancient alchemists. And it will be even closer to Ninki in 2030 when it rises as morning star again. So yeah, it was at 1504 Capricorn. So within a half a degree of Vega in that alignment. And it will come back into this alignment on December 22nd in the solstice window. So this is just the first thing. So February 14th, Valentine's Day, Venus is going to realign with Vega. And Vega, I'll share a little bit more about in a moment. But here's Ninki, the vein of the arrow going into the galactic center. And there's a book called Starlight Elixirs and Cosmic Vibrational Healing that was written by Michael Smolkas and Fred Rubenfeld back in the, I think it was the late 80s or early 90s. This book is so good. And one of the things they say about Nunki is it's a star directly seated by the center of the galaxy and emanating from the galactic center where creative force originates, stimulating a new contextual view, new Earth, a new idea, not new, new Earth is not a new idea, but it is, you know, or a remembrance of an old idea now brought into form in a new way. So we're definitely working with this energy with this entire Venus cycle. So, and Vega, as one of the magical stars of the ancient alchemists, and also in the summer triangle, is the vulture star. And the Egyptians saw her as the goddess Nekbet, transmitting her mysteries to the earth through any planet aligned in the zodiacal degrees of Vega. So every year the sun is with Vega January 4th, 5th, and 6th, exact. And then there's, we could say a week or two on either side of that, where it's within the degrees of where the alchemists would have been doing their magical workings of this particular star. And this happens to be that January 4, 5, in that time period is when the earth is closest to the sun. So the sun is aligned with Vega and the earth is closest with the sun. It just so happens that those things are lining up right now. So this means that the potency of the illumination coming to earth when the sun is aligned with Vega is further magnified due to Earth's proximity to the sun. And whenever planets are within 6 degrees, so this is from December 30th to January 12th every year, then this star, the sun is transmitting the mysteries of the star to the earth. So we can tune into that. We can, you know, invite those mysteries to help inform us, and then we can also help to inform them. And Vega is the brightest star in the constellation of Lyra. It's also the famous star that Jodie Foster traveled to in the movie Contact. And in addition to being the bright pole star 13,000 years ago, so now our pole star is Polaris, but 13,000 years ago, it was Vega. So this is a super important star in the sky. Now, as the vulture star, the sitting vulture, there's a Greek story about Orpheus who, he's the one who tries to rescue his beloved from the underworld, and he fails at his attempt, and then he dies. And so Zeus, or Jupiter, sends a vulture to get the lyre that he was carrying out of the river and place it in the sky. And just wanting to acknowledge that there are cultures, there are, I have met people who when I've mentioned something about vulture, get that startled, stunned look in their eye, and they're like, whoa, this is, you know, that's evil, that's bad, it's a bad omen, don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about vultures. They're so afraid of vulture medicine. I love vulture medicine, and I've been to Egypt and saw Nekbet as you see her. This is the top image. Is there's so many images of her all over Egypt and all the temples, and so they considered her to be the great mother, the dark mother, the grandmother, and she was highly revered, unlike some cultures do. So interestingly, vultures are great teachers because they operate in the realms of alchemy. In fact, the name for vultures is Cathartes Aura, or golden purifier, because vultures are the ones that turn death into life. They clean and purify the environment in that process, and we need them. Otherwise, there'd be dead animals rotting all over the place. So here's another image of Nekbet, and also all these vultures. Now, we have different kinds of vultures here in Arizona, but I have seen them perched on rocks like this, where they all gather together. And so we can just imagine how vultures live in harmony with the earth, very Capricornian, and they don't have to work at flying, but rather endlessly soar on the air currents or thermals they see rising from the earth, assisting them in blissfully gliding upon those energy currents, suggesting they can assist us in seeing what we may not otherwise see, and teaching us about the usefulness of seeing subtle energy fields, as well as seeing both multidimensionally and interdimensionally, and how to easily connect with the energy at hand for best results. And then we could also say that are being able to once again honor Vulture as the returning power of the divine feminine. And so as this time with Venus having risen closest to Vega in its many, 1200 year process of going through all the points of the pentagram, that we have this golden purifier divine energy of the Vulture infusing the earth with new feminine wisdom, especially when Venus is aligned with this star for many weeks. It's been here all this month and goes on into next month, making that last pass. So the first ever Pluto return to the US, natal Pluto, began last year. I talked about this last year. I do have a video on this, and I feel like I'm starting to get a little close to my time. So, and I know I'm talking a lot and I'm talking fast. We have a lot to cover. So one of the good things I found out about videos is that you can often slow them down. So if I'm talking too fast for you, you can take the video and slow it down. But what's happening in 2022 for the United States of America, and really for planet Earth, but especially for the US, because the United States declared itself a country on July 4th, 1776, about 245 years ago in 2021. So 246 years ago as we get to July of this year. And Pluto is at 27 Capricorn 33 at that time. And so about every 248 years, it's not as precise because of its elliptical orbit, but Pluto is came back within about 45 minutes from being exact last year in April. And it will come back in October of 2023 to be pretty close again within about 20 minutes of being exact then. So we are in this process from of April of last year until actually January of next year. So Pluto initiations are about dying to a way of being that no longer serves, and an identity that limits living from our true self or original intent. And the original intent of the US has never been lived up to. We're going to see that in a moment. It operates through chaos, powerlessness, and events beyond our control that force us to surrender because we can't control it. It's like, oh, thank you, Pluto. Great. I still try to resist sometimes. I'm in a Pluto cycle myself, and I've had an interesting year, and I finally was like, oh yeah, I need to surrender and let go. And it just made all the difference. So if you happen to be in your own personal Pluto process, it's about facing your shadow and deepest fears. So you're no longer limited or defined by these fears. And so it's all about empowerment. That's the intent of any Pluto cycle. The other thing to keep in mind is that reward and punishment, good and bad, are irrelevant in a Pluto cycle. You can't get out of the cycle by being good. You'll still have to let go. You'll still have to surrender. You'll still have to go through the process. You cannot be good enough to keep it from being what it's about. So basically, the intent is about transformation, whether you want the transformation or not. Now, having said all that, part of it is about perspective and being empowered. And I think when we understand the intent of Pluto, it gives us a chance of looking at what's going on. And we can see in our world, there's a lot of polarization. And somebody might be standing on one side and seeing a 6, and somebody might be standing on the other side and seeing a 9. They're both right, but the other one believes the other one's wrong. So how are we getting to a place where we can go, maybe if I expand my perspective, I might be empowered with an understanding that I didn't know before. So here's a great question. What are you most afraid of? And are you willing to consider that another person's point of view is just as valid as your own, even if it seems completely opposite? And are you willing to question what you believe is true or have been told what is true? Because we do live in a culture right now that is very much about being told, like, this is what's happening. This is what the reality is. This is the truth. And I think our job now is to question that. And there's other factors that are going on in the sky with Saturn and Aquarius and so on that are about the questioning what we believe is true and what we've been told. It's kind of like realizing we're in a matrix, and are we going to continue to believe everything that they want us to believe in this matrix, or are we going to open our awareness to something more? So I thought of this as one of the ways of tuning into it, and that is the Earth really flat? A long time ago, people adamantly believed that. And there are those that to this day, flat earthers, it's just amazing to me that there are flat earthers and they really believe the earth is flat and we've been told a lie, that it's not round. So if you believe it, does it make it true? If we believe that the sun won't rise tomorrow, does that make it true? If we don't believe it, does it make it untrue? These are things for us to consider in this time. So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I feel like the main thing is like we're in this process of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly and stripping away the false self, the dissolution of the caterpillar to reveal the true empowered self, being transformed into a butterfly or a phoenix rising from the ashes. That is the Pluto process. And it's not just the United States, although that United States is kind of on the leading edge of all this, it is the entire planet. This is what's going on. So the three Pluto returns, February 19th, July 11th, and December 27th, when it's exact. The first one on February 19th, Venus and Mars are pretty close to Pluto. And so the other thing that's going to happen is that in 2023, the US will have a Chiron return. And that's also about turning our wounds into our medicine. So the US is definitely in a very deep underworld initiation happening at this time. So let's just see, I think I want to go to this. So that here's the United States created an original intent. And they did it in the Declaration of Independence and the Preamble of the Constitution, and it has never been lived up to. So I feel like this Pluto cycle is like, what do we have to clear out of the way so we can hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And of course, we don't know that those who wrote this declaration, if they really believed it in the way that I would imagine that it was meant to be true. But it is the words that were spoken. And so how do we get to the place where we really live this? And then the preamble to the Constitution that came about in 1787, I think, is we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. We have not lived up to that. We're not promoting the general welfare. We're not ensuring domestic tranquility or justice for everyone. There's some people get away with all kinds of nefarious things. And also the blessings of liberty are being very much questioned right now. And so I think that, we're in a time when our opportunity is to, what is it that is Pluto shining the light on? How is the shadow coming to light so that it can be transmuted and transformed? Now, another very amazing thing that's happening is Uranus coming to the North Node, creating a new Earth destiny in 2022 and 2023. So on January 18th, the nodes entered new signs. The North Node entered Taurus and the South Node entered Scorpio at 29 degrees because the nodes move backwards. And Uranus and the North Node will be within 10 degrees starting on April 2nd until March of 2023. And there will be exact conjunction of the North Node to Uranus on July 31st, 2022. And then the nodes will enter Aries Libra in July, closely square Pluto with the exact square on July 22nd, being the Magdalene feast day. So all this is essentially, Uranus is the change agent. It brings unexpected events for radical change. It's a disruptor. So if you see the seed here, seed is being broken open so something new can grow out of it. And that's kind of what we're experiencing on a planetary level right now. So the way to work with this is to have the courage to surrender and let go, to expect that this is a divine unfolding for the greatest good of all life, to cultivate trust, faith, optimism, and allowing. And then ultimately, when Pluto goes into the new signs in 2023, and Pluto is in a square to that on Magdalene feast day, it's like this will continue. This initiation process is continuing. It's big, it's planetary. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a year. It's taking the time it takes to create the new Earth energy. So there's some additional events in 2022. On April 11th, Saturn will square the nodes. So another aspect of that happening. Jupiter will, and that really is implementing new structures for great sustainable results. That's the positive side of Saturn. But we also get to see where we might be stuck and where things are maybe a little too rigid in a certain way. And then on April 12th, Jupiter will conjunct Neptune. And this is expansive, massive expansion of our ability to dream the new Earth, to dream the dream onward. I think there was a book titled The World is As You Dream It by John Perkins, and many Native cultures say, we've got to dream a new dream. We've got to be dreaming a new dream. So here we are coming together at this time in this way to dream the new dream. So that's pretty cool. And then I just want to end this by, and then we'll open it up for questions, because I'm sure you have questions. I hope you have questions. How is it I'm joyously living a more magical, fun, abundant, and heart-inspired life in this new Earth experience in ways that are better than I could have ever imagined? So this is like one of those kinds of questions that is great to meditate on, to think about, to journal on, as we are co-creating this new Earth reality, and to ask this as a, how is it it's like as if you're already living it. I am already living this joyous, magical, fun, abundant, and heart-inspired life in this new Earth experience. So I guess I'm ready to open it up for questions. If anybody has, you can type into the chat. There maybe have been some questions. I wasn't able to see the chat while I was presenting my slides. But if anybody, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you want to type something into the chat, please feel free to do that.
So I've got a question. Kaylin, it feels like Pluto's been around since 2020 and 2021. Is it going to be the similar energy? Is it going to be different than that?
I think that's a great question. And the thing is, we can't predict how it's going to be, but Pluto in 2020 was conjunct Jupiter and Saturn. And so then we had 2020, and 2021 was kind of a follow-up on that. So yes. In fact, if you think about it, in 2008, what happened? There was the financial crash when Pluto entered Capricorn. And really, Pluto is about the, in Capricorn, because Capricorn has to do with the structures of our society, our governments, our education system, our economic system, our healthcare system. There's probably others that I'm not thinking of, but those things are all being brought into question. There's light being shown on some of the things that have been done around all of that are not for the greater good, not for the common good, as it says in the Constitution of the U.S. and should be for the world, not just our country, but for the entire world. So yeah, I don't know that it will experience it as different. It might just become more intensified, because the more we resist these changes, the more intense the events become to get us to make the shift. So we have to, so it's like that process of surrender. And it's not easy to surrender. Sometimes we really like certain things and we don't want to let them go. Right? So that's a great question. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, the Pluto returns. So Pluto only comes back every 248 years or so. So so most people won't experience a Pluto return unless we learned how to live to be 248 years old. But countries can, and this is the first return of Pluto to the United States Pluto. And again, like I said, like 246 years when the exact part of that's happening, up to 247. So it's not precise. So basically, you think about Saturn returns. Most people who know anything about astrology know that at age 29, 30, you can have a Saturn return. At age 58, 59, you can have another Saturn return. Pluto returns about every 11 and a half years, but they just round it up to 12. So that there's these certain returns that we go through, and Venus returns every 8 years that we talked about. And so there are certain returns. And basically my feeling about that is that these are a time, it's an opportunity for us to go to a higher octave with whatever the intent is around that particular planet and placement of that planet. Now, if we consider that the United States has a Capricorn Pluto, and it was basically the United States was going against the old monarchy, the old form of government, creating a new way of doing government. And something you might find interesting is that when they went to write the Constitution, they went to the Iroquois Confederacy and asked them if they could model their Constitution, something that had been put into place in 1127 AD, I think. Hiawatha Jagansasi, who is the grandmother of that. We talk a lot about that in the Venus work that I do. They created a constitution that had worked for hundreds of years. And so the writers of the Constitution recognized that might be smart to consult them. But what they were told was by the Iroquois was like, yes, model your Constitution after our Constitution, but the one thing you must not forget is to include the wisdom of the circle of grandmothers. You're not to make major decisions that will affect the generations to come without their approval. And if you don't do that, you're going to wind up in trouble. So guess what they didn't do? And guess what? We're in trouble. But interestingly, perhaps we're going to get another woman on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is kind of like what the Iroquois were saying would be the Council of Grandmothers, to oversee certain things and to kind of be the final rule of law, so to speak. And so maybe we're moving in the right direction around that. I don't know. But yeah, I hope that helps. And if you have more on that question, let me know.
Caitlin,
Yes.
this all seems to be like neatly tying a lot of things together. Like it's a tipping point where as a collective we have choice and free will. Does this fit in, like how does this fit into that 26,000 year cycle that you've talked about and I've read a little bit about, but so much information I can't really absorb it? And like how does it all fit in with our country being sort of a leader in this democracy thing that I never knew was so fragile?
Right. So when we're at the end and beginning of an entire 26,000 year cycle, a great year, and I might not have taken time to mention this, but the spring equinox is currently in the circlet of the fish, moving into the constellation of the water bearer. It's 0 Aries point. The constellation was also named Aquarius, so that's why they want to call it the age of Aquarius. But we would say maybe it's the age of the water bearer because it's water, not air. Aquarius is an air sign. And the spring equinox being a seasonal point. That's a 2,160 year cycle. The shift of 26,000 years. So what happens is when you're shifting from one year to another, there's the ending of the old and the beginning of the new, and you find yourself sometimes in this in-between place. And I feel like that's where we are collectively is in the in-between, where all the old that didn't work needs to go. The things that did work, we want to carry forward. The wisdom of the, of the certain ways we have done things, and there's certain ancient tribal ways of doing things and so on that perhaps we want to bring forward, and that have worked really well. And in terms of creating a way that's going to support all life and not just a few. But we're in that in between. And we could say that 144 years from 1926 to 2070 is, and here we are in 2022, like in the center point of that in between. And we have all of this energy between with Pluto and with the Venus cycle and with Uranus in the North Node and all these things that are here to help support us in creating something new and letting go of all that old. But we may not see the results of that fully for a while because it takes time for it to become manifest, but we can experience it personally in our own lives. And I will say that I have found that I experience it more and more in my life as long as I don't listen to the news. And I hang out with people like you, Joy, and our priestess community, and our and people who are here to help bring forth this new earth, this new world. And there are so many groups of people that's what they're here to do. They know it, they are working on it. They are, it's like, how do we come from love? How do we come from kindness? How do we come from compassion? How do we let go of certain points of view that are not helping us to be more co-creative and collaborative and connected, that have caused greater separation and that kind of thing. And so Pluto's here to help dismantle all that. Uranus actually too will help dismantle all that as well. Disrupt it. Pluto's more of a dismantler, and I think Uranus is more of a disruptor. Like, if you disrupt it, and you can't, and neither of them can you control the results. You can try, but it probably won't work. So if anybody has anything else, please jump in. We have a couple more minutes, or we can just end this now. And I hope you found this to be useful. And again, I highly recommend going back and listening to it, where you can stop and take notes, and I'll have the whole PowerPoint you'll have access to. There's a lot to digest and absorb, and we have been conditioned to try to do this in a left brain way and to understand it all with our mind. But ultimately, this is really about how do we understand it with body, mind, and soul, and then take action and then be part of that, creating intentions and so on that help to inform these mysteries of what we really want in the new earth going forward. So thank you, everybody.
So Kaylin, thank you so much. I was so moved when you drew the lines from Nicole Christine's work to where we are for those of us that are in her lineage. It just, it really is heart-rending. And I just want to acknowledge you, Kaylin, not only because of your immense ability to show us the sky and to open it to us on a mythical level, on a mysterious level, that it get to be revealed to each one of us through our own lens. That's part of our work. That's part of what we're here to do. But I want to acknowledge you as a grandmother in our community as well. I feel like Nicole Christine was a grandmother, and you are a grandmother. And those of us who sit at your feet are honored. And we just appreciate all the work, effort, and energy that you put in to do your presentations, to share your soul and your heart with us. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Judy. And I love that you just said that, because one of the things I realized that in all the Capricorn cycles that I've ever experienced before, major life changes have happened for me. And I feel like the one that I'm finally ready to embrace is that I am a wise woman. I am a grandmother, and I'm literally a grandmother, having had my first grandchild in 2020. So it's the first time I'm going through this cycle as a literal grandmother, and also to recognize that because people tell me this all the time, but I just kind of dismiss it. So I'm really practicing, like, I need to embody, yes, I do have this wisdom and I can share it. And I love sharing it and I love having it recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, dear sister. So we're going to take a little bit of a sustenance break, about 15 minutes. And we are going to hear from one of the wisest elders I know. Next, my dear sister, my dear partner, Bonnie Salomon, who has taken life in the last 2 years and up-leveled her ability to be a wise elder. And she's going to give us a transmission that is going to move us forward. I just know that in my soul. So come back for Bonnie, take 15 minutes. I know it's incredibly cold outside, but if you can just open the door and breathe some fresh air, if you can't bear to step outside, at least open the door and take a deep breath of fresh air.
So there is a handout. If you want to print it off, it's not a big deal. We can do it just in your journal. But if you want the printed piece, it's fine. And we'll look forward to seeing you in just a few.
Thanks so
Woohoo.
much.
Thank you, Caitlin. Awesome.